Okay, guys, so here's what I decided to do. I started looking back through the survey results and things like that. I've been explaining the whole time how the series is being built. And there is an overwhelming amount of feedback that people are giving saying, hey, we really want to know VPNs. Now, I've seen a couple of people that say, well, I know this is beyond CCNA, but I'd really like to know VPN technology. It actually isn't. VPNs have crept their way onto the CCNA in a what I'll call a base conceptual format. Simply because Cisco realizes, number one, VPNs are everywhere, everywhere. I would say by far a vast majority of businesses are using VPN connectivity, but they also realize in the same breath that VPNs are hugely complex. I mean, okay, is it hugely complex to set up a VPN connection? Not so much, but to really get it, to really know it, yeah, there's a lot to it. So what I wanted to do, and you can see I changed the title. I'm continuing right on with my routing. It originally was called Internet Connectivity, and we went through the types of internet connections, public-private IP addressing, some of the DMZ design, security thoughts around that. But then I said, you know what? Originally I had one slide that I was going to talk about VPNs just to say, okay, we've addressed it. But once I read back through it, I thought, you know what? I really feel like people want a little more in depth than that. Now, I'm not going to go as in depth as you would get, for instance, if you were to go into the CCNP security track. But I'm going to go more in depth than the typical CCNA so you get it. So you not only see how it works and why it works, but then I'm actually going to add this to the next lab. I'm going to choose VPN connectivity to link up to our corporate office, which is going to be cool, and it's going to be an adventure for us all because I've never done that in GNS3. I'm not too sure how all those pieces will work, but I'm sure we'll figure something out. So here's my one slide. Remember I said I had one slide that I was planning on talking about. This was my one slide that I was going to use to talk about everything VPN, and then I finally said, I need to add a few more to it. So what is VPNs in general? Well, first off, let me just define the term because you may have some if this is you, forgive me, but some network purist that criticizes you when you say, oh, we have a VPN, security, encryption, all that. Well, a VPN is actually any type of WAN connection where you are going through another provider. If you think about what it stands for, VPN is virtual private network. And I actually had a guy explain to me, because I use VPN like most people. It's encryption, it's security, but I had a guy explain to me and I looked it up and he's right. A VPN is actually any kind of network that's not yours. And I shouldn't even draw a cloud. For instance, if I were to sign up, maybe I've got two offices, Arizona here linked up to California, and I sign up for a T1 leased line. I'll just put LL there. Lease line from AT&T. We'll just say that's my carrier. That is, even though most people say, well, that's a dedicated line. It's your line. Well, no, it's not. It's AT&T's line. You're borrowing it from them. Matter of fact, you're paying them to borrow that line, and you're trusting. And here's where the VPN comes in. You're trusting that AT&T is not stealing your stuff as it goes through your network. It's funny when a lot of people hear that. I know some people sit back and go, "Would AT&T do that?" I never thought of that. Well, they could. I mean, if you think about it, you're going through their network. Their technicians control that network. If you have a malicious AT&T person that's out there wanting to capture your data, then they could. And that's why this is technically, again, the network purists would say that is a type of VPN. It's virtually private, but it's not truly private because it's not your network. You're trusting. There's no scandalous AT&T individual that's stealing your stuff in the middle. So I just wanted to get that out on the table. That is from the purest sense what a VPN is, but that's not how most people use the term nowadays. VPN is typically describing using the internet as your backbone to connect to your offices, or as one of the backbones, we'll say. Now, there's a couple types of VPNs. I want to roll those out first of all. There is a remote access, I'll put RA, remote access VPN, and then there's site-to-site VPN. A remote access VPN is typically for the teleworker or somebody who's on the road, they work from home, that kind of thing. Let me just grab a home individual up here. Maybe they just have a laptop that they bring home, and on that laptop is a little VPN client that they use, and it uses their internet connection and creates a secure encrypted tunnel through the internet. Now, there's no tunnel that's actually created. I mean, I can't go and be like, oh, there it is. All that means is whenever this guy sends packets to, we'll say, a server right here, that packet, here's the packet, the whole packet, gets a whole outer shell, kind of like, think of putting it inside of a bigger packet, and that thing has the daylights encrypted out of it, to where it is completely encrypted. Nobody can get it. It is secure, and I'll talk about why and how that's secure in just a moment. So the entire packet is actually encapsulated, and the cool thing is, when this guy connects to the VPN, the firewall or router actually assigns him an IP address that you define from your internal network. So it's virtually, I'll use a little dotted line, it's virtually as if that guy or gal grabbed their PC and ran a long Ethernet cable from their house all the way to your network switch, and now they can access resources as if they were connected. But realistically, they are tunneling all that through the internet, through a public network. So immediately there are security concerns that come up with that, and you can see these are all below at that bottom list. Those are all my reasons for using VPN connectivity. That was just remote access. Site to site is where you actually have two offices tunneling through the internet, just like this, on a permanent basis, to where they permanently tack up this site to site connection, to where over here is, we'll say, 10.1.64. Over on the left side is maybe 10.1.32 or something like that, and .0. And these guys, good grief, I gotta hold my pen right. These guys are communicating to each other as if they had a private WAN link, but again, in reality, they're actually encrypting everything through the internet. So now that's the two kinds of VPNs. Let me talk about the advantages of using VPN connectivity. Number one, security. It is secure. Now, is it as secure as having your own lease line? I can't answer that question. It's kind of like, well, sure, unless you have that malicious person at AT&T stealing your stuff, right? I mean, there's always a risk in every kind of WAN link that we have. There's always some risk unless we literally dig up dirt somewhere and trench fiber optic cable between our locations, which just isn't cost effective to do. So there always is some risk, but I'll say the amount of encryption and the level of encryption, which I'm going to show you how it works, is so heavy nowadays that, I mean, again, you're talking X-Files, if people are able to carve through the kind of encryption that we have, where, or just, those theorists, I was just talking to a guy yesterday. He's like, I just read on a blog that Microsoft has a backdoor into everybody's PC that they have sold to the government, and the government can get in it. I mean, it's that kind of thing. It's just like, it's where you nod and you go, okay, let me just say, if somebody knows how to break the kind of encryption that we use with VPN technology, they're after a lot more than your corporate secret. They're like pink in the brain taking over the world. So it is secure. So affordable. Oh, man, this is probably the number one reason VPNs are awesome, is internet connections are cheap. Relatively speaking, at least much cheaper than buying dedicated WAN links through a carrier between your sites. I mean, you might look at an internet connection. A couple nuggets ago, I rolled out, we'll say a 50 megabit per second link of DSL line, to the internet or something. 50 megabit per second down speed for we'll just round up and say $200 a month, whereas a private T1 line, which is virtually 1.5 megabit per second between your sites, might be running you, $500 a month. I mean, it's just cost-wise, it's a lot more to pay for private links, because it also relates on, how far apart those locations are, and the type of speed, the type of connection. There's a lot of factors that go into that, whereas internet connections are cheap. So if you can get an internet connection, which is virtually everywhere that you can get a VPN set up that goes between your sites. Now, availability. Availability, simply put, anywhere you can get an internet connection, you're there. Whereas private lines, not so available. Reliability. All of it's dependent on your internet connection. The VPN technology itself is solid. It doesn't add anything to your reliability considerations. It's not something like, oh, well, the VPN failed. No, no, no. It's going to be the internet connection that failed if it's anything. So as long as your internet link is reliable, which has become increasingly reliable over the last few years, it's good. Compatibility. Compatibility is across the board. VPNs use one of two standards, either IPsec, which we'll talk about, or SSL. We'll look a little bit about SSL VPNs in a bit. And both of those are not Cisco things. So you can have Cisco routers, Heathen routers, whatever brand you want, and they all kind of connect in together because they're all using standards-based protocols. It's as common as TCP/IP. Now, underneath that, I just had to add ility because everything else had ility, and I couldn't think of a way to blend it in. Quality of service ility. Quality of service, I've already mentioned a couple times going through this series, is used primarily nowadays for voice over IP communications. And this, I would say, is the biggest thing that I want to address with VPNs. First off, when you go to the internet, there is no quality of service. Whoosh, it's gone. The power of the internet is there is no central control of it. So there's no one who can flip the switch and turn off the internet, despite the, the X-Files conspiracy theories that you may say. Maybe there is somewhere, but there shouldn't be anyone in the world who can turn off the internet. But in the same sense, there's no control over the internet. That's why there's all kinds of crimes happening over the internet all the time that nobody can stop, is because there is no central point of control in that. Its greatest power is its greatest weakness, especially when you come to quality of service. Quality of service essentially says when I have phones and they're talking voice over IP, or I can generify it and say any kind of traffic that is going across the network. And by the way, generify is a made-up word. I do that all the time. Just go with me. It just means that when that phone sends traffic, I always put it first. So if there's any point in the network where there's congestion and maybe some data packets have made their way ahead of the voice packets, I'm going to stop the train right there and say, whoa, Betty, let's move the voice to the front. Data, you stand aside. This voice has priority. Let's get it through. Well, that works great until send it out to the internet. You're doomed on the internet because now you get into your service provider and they link to their service provider. No one cares anymore that you've got little tags on there saying that voice traffic is really a priority traffic. They're just sending data with everything else. Now, that being said, does that mean we can't run voice over IP over VPN connections? No, it doesn't at all. I've done it in a lot of cases. And honestly, I run a company now where we provide managed services for clients, managed data, managed voice, and that's one of the options I give them. I say, hey, we're going to roll out voice over IP, and I'm 100% upfront. I say, okay, we can get IP phones plugged in here. We'll go across our VPN to our data center, link the sites up. We've got it all rolling out. It's awesome. But I say, this is not guaranteed service, meaning you may be on a call sometimes and it may disconnect. You may be on a call and you have a gap every now and then. Now, and what I'll say is, from my experience, you will probably see that maybe once every couple months you might have a call that you go, oh, I couldn't hear you. There was a clip in the audio. I didn't hear you just right. But it's not going to be an everyday thing. You might go half a year before you ever experience a call problem, because voice over IP calls, I'll say on average run at about 80 kilobits per second with all of the header and IP packet stuff put in there. That's not much bandwidth. And it doesn't take much to squeeze a call like that through the internet without a problem. And what I will immediately tell people, I'll say, we can also do a dedicated circuit between your offices, that we can guarantee the quality of service on, and that's just going to be an extra, we'll say $250 a month for a T1 line, or if you want just a fiber, that's going to bump you up to $650. And I say that will give us guaranteed, never any audio drops or anything like that, because we control that network. Do you see my point? When people realize that, and they go, oh, okay, so I drop a call every couple months, or maybe get a clipped audio every couple months. And again, it depends on your internet connection. I'll say that, of course. But or I pay $650 a month to make sure I don't have a clipped audio. Okay, let's wing it. How's that? Let's go for it. So this is a big deal, though. There is no quality of service, and I'll say unless you are fortunate enough that every site that is connecting via VPN is with the same carrier. Like maybe you are using, we'll say Cox is a cable modem provider in our area. Cox or Quest or CenturyLink or blah blah blah. It all goes down the line. Then you can arrange with them, of course, for a fee where they will say, oh well, okay, since you're all on our network, you never leave our network with your internet connections. We can give you quality of service between your sites, and that'll work out. Okay, this is where I go a little beyond the original overview I had intended for VPNs into some of the details that will be valuable for you. Not just to understand it for yourself, but to explain it to management, to explain it to fellow technicians, to really know what's going on behind the scenes. And I have a feeling it won't be long before we start seeing elements of this on the CCNA exam. So first off, we have the IPsec protocol. Now, IPsec think of that as the protocol of security, but it's not just a protocol. Remember when you learned about TCP/IP? One of the first things, maybe you learned it from me, maybe you learned it from a book or another instructor, but someone told you, well, TCP/IP is not a protocol; it is a suite of protocols. Remember that discussion? And they say, well, inside of there are things like ARP and application protocols like FTP, and you end up learning all these layers and blah blah blah. All the different and I know some of you are like, I tried to block all that out, and so sorry to rehash that with you. Well, IPsec, not a protocol. It's a suite of protocols that do all kinds of things for security. And I'm going to give you a high-level view of these. If you ever want to get into it, CCNP Security, it really dives into each piece of this. But I'm going to start from the right-hand side. Protection. It offers protection protocols known as Diffie-Hellman protocols. I'll talk about how these are used in a moment, but a high-level view allows you to bring up a secure connection over a public network where people can see everything that's going on. So I'll demystify that in just a moment, but this is the magic of how it happens. You have authentication protocols that make sure, number one, that the person sending the data to you is who they say they are, but also that the data does not change as it's passing through the network. A lot of people call these hashing protocols, and really what it does, I always think of them as like a blender. Right, you got a blender, and right before you send your packet, all of your data, the router running this authentication protocol takes that packet and throws it in the blender, chucks in a little pre-shared key. This is my key. Chucks in a random number, we'll say 55, hits the puree button, and then spits out a answer. It's a big mathematical blender problem that will spit out some result, and it'll be F59B19, some will say 32 character string that it sticks on the end of that. Well, the only way that you'd be able to generate that 32 character string is if every bit in that packet matched exactly the data that was sent. So when it gets to the other side, let's say this is one router sending the data to another router over a VPN. Well, when the packet gets to the other side, before it does anything else with it, the router on the right-hand side takes the packet, chucks it in the blender with the number, with the shared key, and this is something that would be exchanged beforehand and all set up, hits the puree button and makes sure the answer it gets is the same thing that this guy put on the packet when he sent it. If the answer is off by even one digit, he's like, oh, sorry, this packet has changed. It does not match. I don't trust it. I'm chucking it. I don't believe it. It's not authenticated. So that's the authentication protocols. Encryption protocols are probably what most people are familiar with. It just scrambles the data. And I'll talk again more on that when we look at the different types of encryption. But these are just some of the algorithms for encryption. And then over here we have the negotiation protocol. Think of this as the engine of IPsec. IPsec has been built to be expandable and extendable for the future. So, maybe down the road they come up with a new encryption algorithm. Well, they can swap it in. That's no problem. All these parts are changeable. Even the engine itself of IPsec, these are the engines that dictate what parts to negotiate. So maybe 10 years from now, it's like I need a blood test to authenticate you. I need some DNA samplage. So they might add a DNA area of IPsec, and they say, okay, here's the algorithms that, or the methods of testing DNAs that we have. We have the blood test. We have the extraction. I'm just coming up with whatever. But you get the point. So you can change the whole characteristics of IPsec by modifying the negotiation protocol. Okay, we're about to get into one of my favorite topics to talk about, which is how's it possible? I mean, how is it possible to have a secure encrypted tunnel over a network with big ol' eyes, which we call the internet, where anybody can see anything that goes through the internet? And I'm gonna talk a little bit more about that in a second. How do you do it? I mean, you can't just send encryption keys over the internet because the eyes will see them, and now they can encrypt and decrypt your data as well. So before I give you that full explanation, you have to understand there are two kinds of encryption keys that exist. There are symmetric, and these are the ones most people know about. These are commonly called shared secret keys, where you have one key. And when I say key, this is really just a big math formula. You have one formula that is used to encrypt and decrypt data. Now, it's a complex formula, definitely. It's very complex. However, if somebody has the key to that formula, then they are able to encrypt and decrypt anything that you are able to send. Benefit of symmetric encryption is it's much easier on your router's processor. It does not kill your router or your firewall to run this kind of thing. But it's nowhere near as secure as asymmetric encryption. Asymmetric, most people call it public and private key encryption, is where you have one key to encrypt and decrypt data. And let me back up. You have one key that you can use to encrypt data, and then another key that you use to decrypt data. Now these two keys are reverses of each other. So that's why I kind of said encrypt or decrypt at first, is because anything I encrypt with this key can be decrypted with this key. Anything I encrypt with this key can be decrypted with the other key. Does that make sense? So they're complete opposites of each other. Now we can talk about how this all happens. Let's talk about bringing up a site-to-site VPN, but I also want you to realize how amazing this concept is, because this concept I'm about to show you is used for all kinds of security over a public network. Meaning, when you go to your online banking website in Internet Explorer, Chrome, or Firefox, or whatever pops up that window that says, you are about to view this page over a secure connection. Do you want to continue? And you check the box that says, never show me that again, and hit yes. You know what I'm talking about? And you go to an HTTP site, it's using the same kind of technology. This is happening all over the place. So it's not just what the VPNs that this applies to. So let me get into it. So let's say we have our corporate site, and we have a branch office. And I want to establish a site-to-site VPN between them. So obviously in the middle is the internet connection. So who knows what internet connections they have. It doesn't really matter. We're all going across that same public cloud. So the branch office is maybe 10.1.64.0. Been using that subnet for a little while. So let's go to the corporate side, and we'll say they're 10.1.63.0. How's that? So we've got these two different subnets. I want to bridge them together to where clients on this subnet can reach the clients on the corporate and the servers on the corporate directly without this. Or I can make voice over IP calls now between my offices without paying for any long distance charges between them. That's all possible now over the VPN. So now what I'm about to say can be done both ways, meaning the corporate can go to the branch or the branch can go to the corporate, but somebody's going to start it. So I'm just going to say the branch office maybe starts the communication that says, I want to communicate with you over a VPN connection. Now, on the left-hand side, you can see we have a set of keys here. Diffie-Hellman, which is they're actually a group of guys. Diffie, what was his name? Whitfield Diffie and Martin Hellman created this algorithm long ago, and they said there will be two keys. Again, just like I was explaining, one to encrypt and one to decrypt, and they are irreversible. And I'll explain that in just a second. So what will happen is as soon as the branch office tries to initiate a VPN connection, the corporate office says, I've got this public key and I'm going to send it to you in plain, clear text over the internet. Meaning, again, remember, the internet has eyes, right? This is our untrusted network that is looking and can possibly capture any of that data. So whoever's out there that's trying to compromise our network they just saw the plain text, clear text, public formula going across. Matter of fact, it doesn't go across as just a key. It actually goes across as a certificate. But I would say, you want to get into the CCNP security to go through all of what is on a certificate, what is it used for. But anyway, that certificate goes to the other side, which contains that public key. Now, that is half of an encryption formula. Now, public keys, and I'll say asymmetric encryption, let me just talk about strength. On the low end, very low end, you're looking at 512-bit encryption for this guy. To give you an idea, on the symmetric encryption side, meaning the same key, the one we just talked about, same key used for encryption and decryption, common strengths are 64-bit. 128-bit is pretty much the standard. Most people use that nowadays. On the extreme high end is 256-bit encryption that is used for the symmetric key. So on the low end, you can see that this is much, much stronger. Now, and let me also give you an idea on the bits. Every time you add a bit, you double the encryption strength. So don't look at it like 512 is double 256. No. 257 is double 256. 258 is quadruple 256-bit encryption. So, wow, this is exponential. So 512 is just, you can't even compare the kind of strength that is. But whenever there is strength, there is also a lot of processing time. So it slows down the connection if you were to use that. That's why we don't use these keys all over the place. So we've got this 512-bit key, which at the lowest end is exponentially and stronger than our standard keys that we use nowadays. I mean, 512 is pretty much as low as you can go. Standard is about 1028 or 1024-bit encryption, but there's even routers that goes up to 2048-bit encryption. It's just inconceivably more than a typical 128-bit key. So what we've got now is this extremely strong encryption key that we're using. The branch office receives that key or that formula from the corporate office and then generates its own shared secret key. So the shared secret key, this is the key that we would want to use for all of our normal encryption. This is 64 bits or 128 bits. These common algorithms for these keys is DES, triple DES, AES, and these are probably the most familiar algorithms that people know because that's most of what we use. So it generates this shared secret key, which it knows it can't send across the internet because the eyes are there. Someone could compromise it and find that out. So what it does is encrypt that key using the public key. So it's an encrypted encryption key. If you can fathom that, with really strong encryption that's encrypted there. Now, what's the only thing that can decrypt that public key? The private key. You got it. So what's going to happen is now this encrypted shared secret key, oh, look at that. I got an arrow flying with me. It's pointing at it. Goes across the internet. The eyes cannot get that. And over on the left-hand side there, now he uses his private key to decrypt it, and poof, now we have the same shared secret key that was exchanged, and now we can use something that doesn't destroy our performance, because it's a decent strength without going overboard with the Diffie-Hellman strengths there, asymmetric encryption strengths. They now have this shared secret key that they can use for all future communication. You know what? These keys are so easy to generate and use. After they use them for a little while, they'll trash them. He'll generate a new one, or the corporate will generate a new one and send it again encrypted using that Diffie-Hellman public key to the other side, and now we're using a new shared secret. So based on the amount of time or data that you send, you can trash those and reuse those all along. So that's how it's possible to do that. Now, I know some of you that are a little more analytical, maybe sitting back and going, "Whoa, buddy. I took math in school just like you did. I know, if somebody gets half of an encryption formula, can't they figure out the other half?" I mean, think about it. I mean, it's just a mathematical formula. So, I mean, if this says like x plus 5 equals 10, can't they, do a little math and reverse that? Well, this, my thinking, this is about as complex on math as my thoughts usually go. I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. But the people who came up with this algorithm, let me just give you the flyby version of this. You can read about it's actually, I think, in Wikipedia. You can read the whole story. But Martin Hellman and Whitfield Diffie. Martin Hellman was a college professor, and Whitfield Diffie was the student. And they were trying to figure this out. They were trying to figure out, can we come up with a mathematical algorithm that is irreversible? Meaning if you get half the algorithm, you cannot figure out the other half. And the way the stories explain it, this is how the two gentlemen said it happened, is again, Whitfield Diffie, student, went home, fell asleep while working on this project, woke up at 2 in the morning and had a revelation. He goes, I got it. He had a dream. It's almost like Martin Luther King here. He had a dream that he woke up and goes, that's it. I've got it. He grabbed paper and jotted down what is now known as the Diffie-Hellman algorithm. And they actually have that algorithm published. It's wide open. Anybody can see what the formula is, but nobody can break it. Nobody can figure out how to reverse that formula. So if somebody gets the public key, which anybody can get, that's free information. Every website sends out their public key when they're doing security, every VPN. It's free information. But if they have that, it is not possible to generate the private key. Now, I could go into all the theories. I will say it's theoretically not possible simply because nobody's done it. Nobody's found a way to do it over the 30 years that this algorithm has been available. So if you think about things that were developed 30 years ago, there's very few things, especially in the security realm, that people still use, but Diffie-Hellman happens to be one of them. So that is how VPNs are possible. That's how it's possible to do security over a public network using where everything is sent in clear text. All right, one more thing I'll say, and then we'll wrap up. These eyes in the internet. The eyes. Explain that to me. So a lot of people. So if I send something in clear text on the internet, like I send an email and it has a password in there, are the eyes there? Are they watching? Is my password compromised? I will say chances are no. Now, let me be quoted as saying anything that you send to the internet is potential for theft. Somebody can steal it because there's no one authority that handles it. But really, when you think about the internet, think about obfuscation, meaning you're hiding data just in the sheer quantity of data that's going through the internet. Meaning there's so much data going through the internet every single second that your email that says, hey Bob, the password to the website is this, chances of somebody out on the internet, out of all the data that's out there, being like, whoa, password for Bob, we've got that. Chances are so slim that could happen. I'll just say it's probably 99.99999% guarantee it's not going to happen. However, again, once you're talking site-to-site VPNs, I'm not saying, oh yeah, establish clear text tunnels between your site, because again, now your quantity of information has skyrocketed that you're sending between the sites, and so there's now a chance that maybe somebody will grab that. But I don't want to make any conspiracy theorists out there that if you send something in clear text, that's it. I'm sorry, your security is gone. You're getting hacked tomorrow, just because of the, again, sheer quantity that's out there. Whew, so a little deeper than I had intended on going on VPNs originally, but at the same time, I think really good stuff to give you a warm, fuzzy feeling when you set up VPN connections between your site. I'm actually going to add VPN to the next lab, but preface it by saying that is definitely not on the CCNA exam, but I do want you to see what it looks like to set up a VPN between two locations. For now, I hope it's been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.